Message to the drug traffickers is get the hell out of our country. Your free ride is over because President Trump is back in the Oval Office.
More than $3. $1 million in student aid vanished without explanation. 62 ghost accounts appeared inside the university's financial system overnight. 14 silent transfers fed a private fund that never appeared in public audits. Every document, every authorization trail, every overridden safeguard pointed back to one office. The office of the university president. What first appeared to be clerical irregularities quickly revealed a pattern that investigators recognized immediately. Funds were not being stolen randomly. They were being redirected with precision, timed around academic calendars, student travel windows, and closed-door leadership programs, promoted as elite mentorship opportunities. At the center of it all stood Dr. Amina Hassan Wars, the respected president of Atlantic Hills University. To the public, she was a reformer. A symbol of progress. A national figure praised for expanding access, championing women's advancement, and modernizing higher education. But inside federal intelligence briefings, her name had begun to surface alongside words no university president should ever share space with. Trafficking corridors. Cartel-linked finance routes. Student vulnerability indexing. This was not mismanagement. This was structure. The first alarm came from a routine financial review triggered by discrepancies in international scholarship disbursements. Small amounts at first. $30, $50. Amounts low enough to avoid automated reporting thresholds. But multiplied thousands of times, routed through shell consulting firms and offshore academic partners, those microtransfers quietly accumulated into hundreds of millions of dollars. Then came the human data. Female students participating in Dr. Wars' flagship mentorship initiative were being flagged internally using non-academic criteria. Financial instability, family estrangement, visa dependency, psychological vulnerability markers. These were not mentorship notes. They were assessments. Travel records raised further concern. Students approved for short leadership retreats failed to appear at partner institutions. Return confirmations were missing. Follow-up documentation had been closed without review. 14 students withdrew from the university after participating in these programs. No exit interviews. No contact updates. No welfare checks. They simply vanished. By the time federal investigators escalated the case, what they were looking at no longer resembled an education scandal. It resembled a controlled pipeline, one that used academic legitimacy as cover. At 4:12 a.m., that pipeline was interrupted. Without sirens, without press, without warning. Federal vehicles rolled onto the Atlantic Hills University campus under blackout protocols. Headlights dimmed. Agents moved in disciplined silence, sealing entrances, locking administrative wings, and securing data centers before a single alarm could be triggered. The target was not a dormitory, not a lecture hall, not a laboratory. It was the president's office. The doors were reinforced, the walls soundproofed. Inside, agents discovered 2 sealed safes embedded into the structure itself. 6 passports under different identities. 14 international banking documents tied to offshore accounts across multiple jurisdictions. Down a service road just beyond university property, agents breached a warehouse registered to an academic logistics contractor. Inside were 680 sealed crates, each labeled with shipping codes previously flagged in Sinaloa-linked financial investigations. No faculty were present. No staff, and no sign of Dr. Wars. For 5 years, more than $4. $2 billion had moved quietly through university departments, research grants, mentorship initiatives, and international programs without triggering meaningful intervention. Not because safeguards failed, but because they were systematically bypassed. The deeper investigators went, the clearer the picture became. Atlantic Hills University had not been infiltrated. It had been repurposed. Dr. Wars' mentorship program, praised publicly as a model for empowerment, functioned privately as a recruitment mechanism. Agents recovered internal files listing more than 80 young women marked as high potential. Each file included detailed annotations about personal circumstances, financial pressure, and dependency factors. None of it was academic. Travel authorizations told the rest of the story. 27 leadership excursions routed not to universities or research centers, but to private docks, offshore retreats, and unregistered marinas. The destinations never appeared in official exchange agreements. The partners did not exist. Financial audits confirmed the scale. Nearly $190 million approved by Dr. Wars herself under student advancement budgets never reached the financial trail leaving Atlantic Hills University did not disperse randomly. It converged. Federal analysts began reconstructing 5 years of transaction data pulled from internal servers, archived backups, and third-party payment processors. What initially appeared as scattered academic spending quickly revealed a controlled pattern. Funds exited the university in narrow streams, routed through special projects, international study programs, and restricted philanthropic allocations that bypassed standard oversight. The amounts were deliberately structured. Always below automatic reporting thresholds. Always timed to academic stress cycles. Always approved through expedited review paths personally authorized by Dr. Amina Hassan Wars. Over a 60-month period, investigators identified thousands of microtransactions, each insignificant on its own. Bundled together, they formed offshore holdings exceeding $900 million. From there, the money fractured into multiple directions. One stream fed shell entities registered in Malta, Malaysia, and Mauritius. Organizations with no staff, no offices, and no public activity beyond bank accounts. Another stream disappeared into charitable foundations that existed only as legal names and routing numbers. A third financed luxury travel, private charters, and maritime transport booked under the guise of educational exchange logistics. Every transfer had a label. Every label had a purpose. And every purpose concealed a lie. The pattern aligned precisely with recruitment phases inside the mentorship program. Withdrawals spiked during midterm periods, when students were most vulnerable to academic pressure. Funding surged in the weeks leading up to overseas travel windows. Financial velocity increased every month prior to the island rotations referenced in seized internal correspondence. Money was not merely supporting the operation, it was controlling it. As forensic accountants dug deeper, they uncovered a hidden approval system operating parallel to the university's official finance infrastructure. Select staff process transactions through encrypted review tools outside the main servers. Some participants appeared unaware, others were not. One internal ledger, recovered from a concealed directory, listed 7,400 financial authorizations bearing Dr. Wars' direct approval. Many were legitimate. Too many were not. Travel budgets ballooned without explanation. Consulting invoices appeared from global leadership partners that could not be verified. Donor gifts vanished into offshore foundations within hours of receipt. The clearest red flag emerged offshore. A Cayman Islands account held $412 million sourced directly from university departments. A second account in the British Virgin Islands contained $287 million labeled as leadership development reserves. A third account in Dubai showed $166 million categorized under women's empowerment initiatives. None of the funds benefited a single student. When analysts synchronized timestamps, a chilling precision emerged. Financial movements aligned exactly with known student selection cycles. Every dollar corresponded to a decision. Every decision corresponded to a person. The university was not funding programs. It was financing a pipeline. While the financial picture took shape, intelligence teams expanded their scope beyond campus boundaries. Surveillance data, travel manifests, and maritime records began converging on a single offshore location, an island positioned far from routine shipping lanes, protected by layered private security and registered as a luxury retreat. Satellite imagery showed perimeter towers, reinforced access points, and regular nighttime vessel movement. Charter logs tied directly back to academic travel budgets. Guest manifests referenced leadership conferences with no verifiable attendees. Then came the confirmation. Human intelligence reports verified that 36 young women were being held inside the island compound, transported through closed-circuit routes connected directly to the mentorship pipeline. The site operated 1 week per month, rotating guests drawn from elite diaspora networks across Europe, the Middle East, and North America. Behind every invitation was secrecy. Behind every event was silence. At that point, the investigation shifted from exposure to rescue. Federal Command consolidated the evidence and elevated the operation to joint agency priority status. The directive was clear. No leaks. No warnings. No delays. Every movement would be synchronized to prevent escape and preserve lives. More than 500 federal personnel were assigned to the mission. FBI, DHS, DEA, ICE, and Coast Guard units integrated under a single operational command. Maritime interdiction teams coordinated with aviation support. Medical and extraction units were staged in advance. The objective was narrow and absolute. Recover every victim. Secure every suspect. Shut the system down completely. On January 3, 2026, shortly after 3 a.m., the ocean off the California coastline disappeared beneath a wall of fog. Visibility dropped to near zero. Sound carried strangely across the water. And within that fog, federal vessels began their approach. There would be no announcements, no cameras, no second chances. As the island lights blurred into the mist, tension settled across every operator involved. The intelligence window was small. The risk was extreme. And for the women inside, time was already years overdue. At 3:18 a.m., the first teams reached their insertion points. The silence that followed was deliberate, and it marked the beginning of the raid. At 3:41 a.m., movement rippled through the island's main courtyard. Security teams shifted positions. Radio chatter spiked briefly, then cut. A convoy of luxury vehicles idled beneath the central pavilion, engines running, scheduled arrivals logged for later that morning. Internal schedules recovered earlier in the investigation identified this date as a priority attendance window. I value guests. No delays tolerated. Federal command recognized the significance immediately. The window was closing. At 3:57 a.m., breach teams reached the outer perimeter. Floodlights swept across the fog, their beams dissolving into white haze before reaching the waterline. Shouts echoed briefly as island guards scrambled, not toward the interior but toward service routes leading to the docks. That response confirmed everything intelligence had predicted. The guards were not trained to protect occupants. They were trained to protect exits. At 4:02 a.m., the operation accelerated. Hallways were cleared in sequence. Courtyards secured. Doors breached with controlled precision. Agents moved fast but measured, prioritizing containment over confrontation. Inside the main compound, the women did not react with relief. There were no cheers. No cries for help. Some cried quietly. Others stood frozen, exhausted, unsure whether the figures entering the rooms represented rescue or another transfer. For years, compliance had been a survival mechanism. Trust was no longer automatic. Federal agents spoke softly. "You're safe now." The words were repeated carefully again and again. Within minutes, the compound was fully controlled. No aircraft departed. No vessels slipped away. No documents were destroyed. For the first time in 5 years, the island fell silent, not with fear but with accountability. As teams moved deeper into the compound, the scale of the operation revealed itself not through resistance, but through absence. An absence of normal life. An absence of hospitality. An absence of any illusion that this place had ever been what it claimed to be. The administrative pavilion resembled a luxury resort office from the outside. Inside, it functioned as a surveillance hub. Rows of monitors displayed live feeds from every walkway, private suite, shoreline access point, and interior corridor. Logs showed 24-hour monitoring with behavioral annotations beside each woman's name. Withdrawn. Compliant. Resistant. Unresponsive. In a locked drawer, agents found 268 identification documents, passports, student IDs, driver's licenses, belonging to women whose families believed they were studying abroad or attending leadership retreats. The dates under the photographs told a different story. Many had been missing for months. A climate-controlled vault yielded 42 handwritten ledgers, each documenting financial commitments from private club members. Entry fees reached $450,000 per visit. Recurring contributions totaled $8.7 million annually. Event sponsorships exceeded $22 million over 3 years. This was not philanthropy. It was commerce. Across the courtyard, another structure exposed a more personal layer of control. Storage units held designer clothing, cosmetics, and accessories purchased in bulk. Inventory systems tracked sizes, preferences, and presentation requirements. These were not amenities. They were uniforms. A communications hub revealed 19,000 archived messages, routed through offshore servers. Travel itineraries. Payment confirmations. Encrypted withdrawals tied to accounts in Dubai, Nairobi, London, Toronto, and Stockholm. One folder labeled simply rotation outlined visitor schedules spanning 4 years. But the most telling discovery lay beneath the pavilion itself. A concealed stairwell descended into an underground planning chamber. Not a bunker. Not a shelter. A coordination room. Maps lined the walls, tracing recruitment pipelines, financial flows, and transport routes. Color-coded markers identified feeder universities, partner organizations, and offshore holding entities. At the center sat promotional materials. Women of Tomorrow, the brochures read. Smiling faces. Inspirational language. Promises of empowerment. Beside them lay ranking lists. Candidates evaluated by appearance, language fluency, academic prestige, and vulnerability scores. By the time the compound was fully secured, the truth was undeniable. This was not an improvised crime. It was an engineered system. A machine built with academic respectability, funded by international elites and protected by silence. The walls of the fortress had not merely hidden the operation. They had organized it. But the island was only one node. Because long before the fog closed around the shoreline, the real foundation of this network had already been laid, quietly, methodically, inside the university itself. Long before agents stepped onto the island, the investigation had already exposed the framework that made it possible. It began with numbers. When federal auditors first examined Atlantic Hills University's financial records, nothing appeared openly illegal. Scholarships, research grants, donor contributions, international exchanges. On paper, the institution looked exemplary, but the behavior of the money told a different story. Not the volume alone, the velocity. Over a 5-year span, analysts identified $4.2 billion in transactions routed through special academic projects and restricted philanthropic channels that bypassed traditional oversight. These funds did not move in chaotic bursts. They moved with discipline, predictable cycles, consistent destinations, too clean to be accidental. Investigators reconstructed the flow step by step. Funds originated inside the university, hidden among routine expenses. From there, they split into microtransfers, thousands of them, each deliberately kept below regulatory thresholds. $30, $50, $70, individually meaningless, collectively massive. Bundled through automated scripts, the transfers accumulated offshore. One stream consolidated in Malta, another in Malaysia, a third in Mauritius. Each entity existed on paper only. No offices, no employees, no operations beyond holding and redistributing money. From those hubs, the funds fractured again. Some into fake charitable organizations, others into luxury travel logistics, and a significant portion into private maritime and aviation routes tied directly to the island. Every dollar had a destination. Every destination had a purpose. Investigators uncovered a hidden ledger operating outside the university's primary servers. Encrypted, compartmentalized, accessible only to a small inner circle. Within it were approval logs bearing Dr. Amina Hassan War's direct authorization. More than 7,400 transactions over 5 years. Many were legitimate. Too many were not. Travel budgets expanded without justification. Consulting invoices appeared from leadership partners that could not be verified in any jurisdiction. Donor gifts disappeared into offshore foundations within hours of arrival. The most disturbing discovery was the timing. Withdrawals spiked during academic midterms, when students were under maximum pressure. Financial activity surged before each island rotation. The money was not simply financing logistics. It was regulating supply. Parallel to the financial review, investigators analyzed communications traffic. Emails, secure messages, calendar entries disguised as academic scheduling. Together they revealed a ranking system, not of donors but of clients. A benefactor registry spanning 17 countries, each entry tied to recurring payments averaging $850,000 per quarter. Attendance windows, preference indicators, payment confirmations. The island was not a retreat. It was a marketplace. As the scope became clear, federal command elevated the case again. This was no longer about rescuing victims or dismantling a single network. It was about understanding how an operation of this scale had survived for years without intervention. The answer was uncomfortable. It had lived inside trusted institutions, universities, foundations, leadership councils, global education forums. Dr. Wars had not relied on force. She had relied on credibility. She spoke about empowerment while indexing vulnerability. She hosted conferences on equity while laundering millions. She positioned herself as a protector while quietly selecting candidates based on financial desperation and isolation. Her greatest defense had never been the island. It had been reputation. By the time agents escorted her from the underground planning chamber, the system was already collapsing. Financial accounts froze in real time. Withdrawal attempts failed across multiple jurisdictions. International partners moved simultaneously, seizing assets and detaining collaborators. But even as arrests mounted, investigators understood a deeper truth. This case was bigger than one university president, bigger than one island, bigger than one country. It revealed how easily exploitation could hide behind prestige, how silence could masquerade as respect, and how institutions built to uplift could be weaponized to control. And with that realization came the final question. If this network had thrived inside systems people trusted, how many others still existed, untouched, unquestioned, waiting for the moment someone finally looked closely enough? By the time the fog lifted completely, the island stood silent. Helicopters idled overhead as evidence teams cataloged what remained. Crates of seized documents, encrypted drives, financial records spanning continents. The physical operation was over, but the real work had only begun. Inside a secured federal transport, Dr. Amina Hassan Wars sat without resistance as she was moved off the island. She did not issue statements. She did not protest. The evidence had already rendered denial meaningless. Her arrest triggered a cascade that extended far beyond the shoreline. Within hours, coordinated actions unfolded across the United States and abroad. Federal teams executed arrests in 11 major cities. Financiers, intermediaries, travel coordinators, academic collaborators, individuals who had not trafficked directly, but who had enabled the system through access, legitimacy, and silence. In several cases, suspects were detained mid-transaction as accounts were frozen in real time. International partners followed suit. Authorities in Europe, East Africa, and the Middle East locked down more than 100 offshore accounts tied to the network. Attempted withdrawals totaling tens of millions of dollars were blocked within minutes. The financial spine of the operation collapsed faster than it had been built. As analysts reconstructed the full scope, one conclusion became unavoidable. This network did not survive because it was hidden. It survived because it was trusted. Universities provided credibility. Foundations provided cover. Leadership programs provided access. The operation thrived not in darkness but in plain sight, shielded by titles, awards, and reputations that discouraged scrutiny. It demonstrated how easily authority could replace oversight, and how quickly systems designed to protect could be turned into pipelines of exploitation. For federal agencies, the implications were clear. Safeguards failed. Oversight fractured. Responsibility was assumed rather than verified. Reforms are now underway: tighter financial monitoring for educational institutions, mandatory cross-agency reviews for international programs, and expanded protections for students flagged as vulnerable to coercion. But no policy can undo what was already taken. The women rescued from the island now face a long path forward. Medical care, legal support, trauma recovery. Their lives cannot simply resume where they paused. Yet for the first time in years, their futures are no longer being decided in secret rooms by people who profited from their silence. This case will move through courts, hearings, and international proceedings for years. Names will surface. Institutions will be forced to answer questions they avoided for too long. Some will claim ignorance. Others will face accountability. What remains undeniable is this: criminal enterprises do not always wear masks. Sometimes they wear credentials. They do not always operate with violence. Sometimes they operate with paperwork. And they do not always rely on fear. Sometimes they rely on trust. The investigation into Atlantic Hills University and the Island Network stands as a reminder that vigilance is not optional, especially where power, prestige, and vulnerability intersect. Justice does not arrive quickly. But when systems are challenged and silence finally breaks, even the most carefully constructed empires can fall. Not because they were unstoppable, but because eventually someone chose to look closely enough.